My wife cheated on me with the man who once failed me. I don't mean failed me emotionally. I mean academically. He stood at the front of a lecture hall years ago, red pen in hand, and told me I hadn't understood the material well enough. I remember the exact phrase he used because it stuck with me longer than the grade itself. You're capable of more, but you lack discipline. Back then, I took it as a challenge. I worked harder. I passed the course. I graduated. I built a life I was proud of. I just never imagined that same man would someday be standing between me and my wife. The first time she mentioned him again, it felt harmless, almost nostalgic. She was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her laptop, smiling in a distracted way that I assumed had something to do with work. "Do you remember Daniel?" she asked. I did, instantly. His name didn't need context. "Your professor?" I said. "Yeah. Why?" She shrugged. Casual. Too casual. "I ran into him at a conference. We talked for a bit. He asked how we were doing." We. That should have bothered me more than it did. At the time, our marriage felt stable. Not perfect, but solid in the way long relationships become. Routine, dependable, built on shared history rather than constant excitement. We had inside jokes that no one else understood. We knew each other's rhythms. We trusted each other. So when she said he'd offered to mentor her, help her navigate a potential career shift, I didn't question it. Mentorship made sense. He was respected in his field, older, established, married as far as I knew, and most importantly, he existed in a category I didn't feel threatened by anymore. That's how it starts, I've learned. Not with secrecy, with familiarity. Soon, Daniel became a regular topic. Not constantly, just enough to normalize his presence. She mentioned emails, then calls, then meetings that ran long. She started using phrases I recognized from my university days. His phrases, his way of framing ideas. I told myself I was imagining things. But something changed in her tone when she talked about him. A softness, a kind of intellectual admiration that slowly drifted into something warmer. She spoke about him the way people speak when they feel seen, and I realized, quietly, that she no longer spoke about me that way. The first time I met him again was at our home. She suggested dinner, said it would be nice for us to reconnect, that Daniel had always spoken highly of me. I believed her. I even felt a strange sense of pride, like I'd finally earned approval from someone who once held authority over me. When he walked through our door, he looked different. Older, yes, but also more relaxed. Confident in a way that didn't need to prove itself. He shook my hand and smiled like we shared a private understanding. "You turned out well," he said. I didn't know then that he meant she had. Dinner was polite, civil, almost pleasant. But there were moments, small, almost invisible ones, that lodged themselves in my chest. The way my wife laughed a second longer at his jokes. The way she leaned toward him when he spoke. The way he watched her when he thought I wasn't looking. They spoke in shorthand, shared memories that excluded me. He referenced moments from her academic years she'd never told me about. Struggles, doubts, dreams she'd apparently confided in him long before she ever confided in me. I felt like a guest in my own marriage. After he left, my wife seemed lighter, energized. She cleaned the kitchen with unusual enthusiasm, humming softly, replaying the evening in her head. "He's changed," she said. "Or maybe I just understand him better now." That sentence stayed with me. Over the next month, the distance grew. Not dramatic, not confrontational, just quiet. She became more guarded with her phone, more intentional with her appearance before meetings, more vague about timelines. I noticed she stopped asking about my day. I noticed she stopped touching me without thinking. The moment everything shifted wasn't explosive. It didn't involve catching her in a lie or discovering explicit messages. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon while I was folding laundry alone in our bedroom. Her phone buzzed on the bed. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious enough yet for that. I just glanced at the screen when it lit up. Daniel. The message preview cut off halfway through the sentence, but it didn't need to finish. I keep thinking about the way you looked when... My hands went numb. I sat there holding one of her sweaters, my mind racing through every rational explanation that could make those words innocent. Mentorship, academic discussion, poor phrasing. But my body knew the truth before my brain accepted it. I didn't confront her. Not that day. I needed to know if this was confusion or betrayal. So I watched. I noticed how she dressed differently for his meetings, how she came home glowing, energized, like she'd been fed something she was starving for, how defensive she became if I asked even gentle questions. And slowly, painfully, the truth became undeniable. This wasn't a mistake. This was a continuation. A line crossed so smoothly, neither of them seemed to notice it anymore. The man who once taught me discipline had found a way around his own ethics, and my wife, my partner, my history, had followed him there willingly. By the time I accepted what was happening, I realized something even more devastating than the affair itself. They hadn't hidden it because they feared hurting me. They'd hidden it because they believed I was already irrelevant. And that realization changed everything. After that message from Daniel, I started living in two realities at once. In one, my wife was still my wife. She still asked what I wanted for dinner, still reminded me about appointments, still laughed at the same old jokes when she felt like it. In the other reality, the one I couldn't shut off, every small habit was suddenly evidence. Every late meeting had a shape. Every smile that arrived a second too late had a reason. I didn't confront her. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew how this goes when you confront too early. The guilty person becomes offended. The offended person becomes the problem. And somehow the entire conversation shifts from what they did to how you dared to suspect it. So I watched. I listened. I kept my voice steady and my questions casual. "How was your day?" "Busy," she'd say, already turning away. "Did you see Daniel?" A pause, small but real. "Just a quick coffee." Just. Everything became just something. Just coffee, just mentoring, just a discussion, just catching up. And then, one evening, she came home carrying a new purse. It was nicer than what she usually bought. Simple, understated, the kind of expensive that tries not to look expensive. She placed it on the counter like it was nothing, like a new object in our home didn't require explanation anymore. "New?" I asked. She shrugged. I needed one. That was it. No story, no reason, just a statement that signaled the same thing the Tesla did in another life. I decided, so it's done. Over the next few days, she guarded that purse the way people guard what they're hiding. She kept it close at dinner, took it into the bathroom, placed it on the bedside table at night instead of the dresser. I noticed without letting her see me notice. And that weekend, something happened that felt so ordinary I almost missed it. We were getting ready to leave for the grocery store. She was looking for her keys, moving quickly, irritated the way she gets when she's running late. The purse was open on the kitchen chair, half unzipped, and she asked me, casually, like she was asking me to grab her jacket, Can you check my purse for my wallet? That request would have meant nothing to me a month ago, but now my hand hesitated before I reached in. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was not going to become the kind of man who digs through bags for proof. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Then my fingers touched something small and smooth in the inner pocket. Not a wallet? A foil wrapper? My stomach tightened so fast it felt like my body had decided before my mind could. I pulled it out and stared at it in my palm. Men's protection. Brand new, unopened, one single piece, tucked away like an emergency tool. For a second, I genuinely couldn't breathe. It wasn't the item itself that broke me. It was what it implied. Planning. Preparedness. A future moment she expected. And the worst part was how quickly my brain ran through the facts, trying to save me from the conclusion. We didn't keep those in the house. We didn't need them. And even if we did, I would have known. I closed my fist around it and looked up. My wife was still searching for her keys, not watching me. Her face was tense with impatience, like the biggest problem in her world was leaving 5 minutes late. "Find it?" she asked. My voice came out steady, almost calm, and that scared me. "I found something," I said. She froze, not slowly, instantly, like a switch flipped. "What?" she asked too quickly. I opened my hand and held the wrapper up between two fingers. Her eyes locked on it, and for the smallest moment, I saw the truth in her face before she could arrange it. Fear, calculation, a flash of anger, at me, not at herself. "Why are you going through my purse?" she snapped. There it was, the pivot. Not what is that? Not how did that get there? Not even I can explain. Just an attack. "You asked me to," I said quietly. "I was looking for your wallet." She swallowed, eyes darting away as if she could find a version of reality in the kitchen tiles. "It's not what you think," she said. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. "Then tell me what it is," I replied. She exhaled hard, like I was exhausting her. "It's for safety, you know, just in case." "Just in case of what?" I asked, keeping my tone level. She crossed her arms. "Don't do this. You're acting crazy." Crazy. That word landed like a slap because it wasn't just defensive. It was a strategy. If she could make me feel unstable, she wouldn't have to answer. I stepped closer, still holding the wrapper. "I'm not yelling," I said. "I'm not accusing. I'm asking one question. Why is that in your purse?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She glanced toward the hallway, toward the door, toward anywhere that wasn't me. And then she said the line that made my blood go cold. "Daniel told me to keep it," she muttered. "He said, after what happened, it's smarter to be prepared." The room went silent in my head. I heard the words, but they didn't fit in my life like normal language. A professor, a mentor, advising my wife to carry something like that. After what happened. I looked at her, waiting for her to take it back, waiting for her to realize what she'd admitted. She didn't. She just stared at me with a kind of stubborn defiance, as if saying his name was supposed to end the conversation, not ignite it. "After what happened," I repeated softly. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "Just once. It didn't mean anything. Just once." But the wrapper in my hand wasn't just once. It was future tense. It was planning for a repeat. I felt something inside me shift. Not rage, not heartbreak, but a hard click of clarity. "I know who he is," I said. "I know what he used to be to me. And now you're telling me he's this." She shook her head, finally letting tears spill. You don't understand. He listens. He sees me. He... Stop, I said, and my voice stayed calm, which made her flinch like I'd shouted. Because calm means I'm not negotiating anymore. I walked to the trash can, held the wrapper over it for a second, then didn't drop it. Not yet. I didn't want to destroy evidence in the middle of realizing I needed it. Instead, I set it on the counter. Plain view, undeniable. Then I said the only thing that mattered. Give me your phone. Her face went blank. No, she said. And in that one word, I got my answer. Not about the wrapper, about everything. Because if she was innocent, she would have handed it over. If she was sorry, she would have handed it over. But she wasn't operating on innocence or sorrow. She was operating on protection. Protection of him. Protection of herself. Protection of whatever life she was building that didn't include me as an equal. I stood there, staring at my wife, this person I thought I knew, and realized the real betrayal wasn't the item in her purse. It was the fact that she'd already chosen who she was willing to protect. And it wasn't me. When she refused to hand me her phone, it didn't start an argument. It ended one. Because there are only so many ways a marriage can translate a single word. Her no wasn't about privacy. It wasn't about boundaries. It was about control, about keeping a door closed that I'd finally put my hand on. I didn't push. I didn't grab for it. I didn't raise my voice. I simply nodded, like I'd expected that answer all along. Okay, I said. She blinked, confused. Okay? Yes, I replied, and I picked up my keys. We're not doing this in the kitchen. Her face tightened. Where are you going? I looked at her and realized I didn't owe her a detailed plan anymore. That was the privilege she'd burned through when she started carrying someone else's future in her purse. I'm going to find the truth, I said. You can decide if you want to be part of it. I left. Not in a dramatic storm out. Not slamming doors. I walked to my car and sat there for a full minute before starting the engine, breathing steadily, letting the cold air fill my lungs. It's strange how calm you can feel when something inside you finally stops hoping. The first person I called wasn't a friend. It was an old classmate. During college, Daniel's course had been one of those pressure cooker classes that bonded students out of pure survival. A handful of us stayed in touch loosely. LinkedIn messages, occasional congratulations, the kind of shallow contact adulthood leaves you with. One name stood out. Rachel. Rachel had been close to Daniel back then. Not personally, but academically. Teaching assistant, eventually. The kind of student professors remembered. If anyone would know whether Daniel had a history, it would be her. I hadn't talked to her in years. Calling her felt desperate. But I wasn't desperate anymore. I was focused. She answered on the third ring, surprised to hear my voice. After the quick catch-up that wasn't really a catch-up, I got to the point. Do you still have contact with Daniel? I asked. A pause. Why? I chose my words carefully, because once you say something out loud, it becomes real. My wife says he's mentoring her, I said. And I have reason to believe it's not just mentoring. Rachel didn't respond immediately. I heard her exhale. Oh, she said softly. It's like that. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. Like what? She hesitated, then said, I don't know your situation. I don't want to accuse anyone. But Daniel has patterns. Patterns. That word cut deeper than any insult. What kind of patterns? I asked. Rachel's voice dropped. He gets close to women who admire him. Not always students, sometimes former students. Sometimes people in the academic world. It's never loud. It's never messy. He's careful. Careful. Of course he was. And people just let it happen? I asked. They don't let it happen, she said. They don't see it. Or they see it and don't want to deal with it. He's respected. Powerful. He wraps everything in mentorship language. Mentorship language. That phrase made my stomach twist because it matched what my wife had been doing. Packaging emotional intimacy as professional guidance. Rachel continued, "He's good at making women feel special, like they're the exception to the rule, like they're smarter, deeper, different than everyone else." I stared out at the road, feeling something settle into place. That's exactly what my wife sounded like when she defended him. Not like she was caught, like she was chosen. "What should I do?" I asked. Rachel didn't offer comfort. She offered reality. "If you're looking for proof," she said, "you won't get it from him. He'll deny everything. If you're looking for the truth, you'll get it from the cracks. Time, money, patterns. People always leave tracks." Tracks. I thanked her and ended the call, sitting in silence for a moment afterward. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, the kind that feels like your mind is building a map. I drove to a cafe and opened my laptop. I started with what I could access without breaking anything: our shared accounts, our calendar, our location history settings, anything we'd had set up as a couple back when we still believed transparency was normal. I found small things first. Payments I didn't recognize. Not huge, not dramatic. Boutique hotels charged for one night at a time. Rideshare receipts on days she claimed she'd been at the library. Restaurant bills in parts of the city she never visited alone before. And then I found the thing that made my throat go dry. A reservation confirmation email, sitting in a folder she probably forgot existed. Not in her main inbox, tucked in promotions, like it could hide in plain sight. A hotel, a date, 2 guests, and Daniel's name as the second contact. I read it twice, 3 times, like repetition would soften it. It didn't. The men's protection in her purse wasn't just in case. It was inventory. My hands stayed steady, but my mind felt razor clear. I took screenshots, saved them, sent them to myself. Created a folder that wouldn't vanish if she decided to delete everything the moment she realized I was serious. Then I did something I hadn't planned to do. I called Daniel's office, not to accuse him, not to yell, just to confirm he existed in the times and places I suspected. The receptionist answered professionally. I used the calm voice I use at work when I need something handled quickly. "Hi," I said. "I'm trying to reach Daniel regarding a personal matter. Do you know if he's available today?" A pause as she checked. "He's out of the office this afternoon." "Do you know when he'll be back?" "Tomorrow morning," she replied. Tomorrow morning. I looked at the hotel confirmation again. Looked at the dates I'd noted. Looked at my wife's coffee meeting calendar entries. Everything lined up. I didn't feel angry yet. Anger would come later. What I felt now was something colder. Certainty. I went home that evening with my mind made up about one thing. I wasn't going to argue my way into the truth. I was going to present it so clearly she couldn't rearrange it. My wife was in the living room when I walked in, pretending to watch TV. She looked up like she'd been waiting for me, trying to read my face. "You didn't answer my texts," she said. I set my keys down slowly. I was busy. With what? I stared at her for a long beat. "Learning who you've been protecting," I said. Her face paled. I didn't pull out my phone. I didn't show her screenshots yet. I wanted her to have one last chance to choose honesty without being cornered by evidence. "Tell me the truth," I said quietly. "Right now. No shaping it, no softening it. Just the truth." She opened her mouth. Then she said, "It was only a few times." Few times. In that moment, I understood something even worse than what she admitted. She wasn't confessing. She was negotiating. And if she was negotiating, it meant the full truth was bigger than she was willing to give. I nodded once, calm enough that it frightened her. "Okay," I said. "Then tomorrow we're going to talk to him." Her eyes widened. "No, don't. Please, don't do that." That panic was the first honest emotion I'd seen in weeks, and it told me everything. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, not with panic, but with the calm you get when your mind has already decided what your body is going to do. My wife was still asleep beside me, facing away. Her breathing was steady, practiced, like she hadn't spent the last month rearranging our marriage in quiet pieces. I lay there and watched the rise and fall of her shoulders and felt something unfamiliar. Not tenderness, not rage, distance. Like she was already on the other side of a line she didn't realize I'd drawn. I didn't wake her. I didn't want to fight before breakfast. The kind that turns into tears and bargaining and delays. I wanted clean daylight, clear sentences, a decision that couldn't be walked back. In the kitchen, I poured coffee and opened my laptop. I didn't look for more proof. I already had enough. Hotel confirmations, call patterns, her own admission a few times. The men's protection in her purse, waiting like a plan. What I needed now wasn't evidence. It was leverage against the lie. I printed the hotel email, printed the ride-share receipts, printed a screenshot of Daniel's name on the reservation, because seeing ink on paper makes people stop calling things misunderstandings. I stacked them neatly on the table the way I would stack prep lists at work. Organized, undeniable. When my wife finally came downstairs, her eyes went straight to the papers. "What is that?" she asked, voice already tight. "Coffee," I said, sliding her a mug. "Sit." She didn't sit. She hovered like the room was dangerous. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Because you're still lying," I replied. Her face hardened. "I told you." "You told me a version," I cut in, still calm. "And you only told it because you were cornered." She swallowed. Her eyes flicked to the printer stack again, like she could will it into disappearing. "Don't," she said quietly. "Please don't do this." I nodded once, as if acknowledging her request. Then I did the thing she feared most. I picked up my phone and pressed call, not to Daniel, to his office. My wife's hand shot out instinctively, as if she could physically stop the decision. I stepped back. Not dramatic, just final. The phone rang. Once, twice. My wife stood frozen, mouth slightly open, the same expression people get when they realize a door they've been leaning on is about to swing wide. A receptionist answered. "Good morning, Daniel's office." My voice stayed polite, controlled. "Hi, I'm calling regarding a personal matter. Is Daniel available?" A pause. Keyboard clicks. "He's in a meeting. Can I take a message?" "Yes," I said. "Tell him this is Ethan. Tell him I'll be calling again at noon, and I expect him to answer." My wife made a sound, half gasp, half protest. The receptionist hesitated. "May I ask what this is regarding?" "Tell him it's about my wife," I said, and I kept my tone even. "He'll understand." I ended the call. My wife stared at me like I'd just detonated something. "You can't do that," she said, voice rising. "You can't call his office." "I can. I replied. I just did. Her eyes filled with tears, but anger held them back. This is going to ruin everything. I looked at her. Everything was already ruined. You just liked it better when only I was suffering. She flinched like I'd struck her. It's not like that, she insisted. You don't understand how it... Stop, I said quietly. I understand perfectly. You didn't slip. You planned. That's why you had that in your purse. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, because there was no safe sentence left. I didn't scream. I didn't call her names. I didn't ask her to explain every detail, because explanations were just attempts to soften the edges of something sharp. Instead, I gave her one last option. Call him, I said. Put it on speaker. Right now. If you want any chance of honesty between us, you call him. She shook her head immediately. No, I can't. You won't, I corrected. She started crying then, real tears now, the kind that come when control finally breaks. I made a mistake, she whispered. I was confused. I didn't mean for it to. You keep calling it a mistake, I said, still calm. But you were prepared for it to happen again. I tapped the printed hotel email. This isn't confusion. This is coordination. She sank into the chair finally, shoulders collapsing. He was important to me. He made me feel special, I finished, because Rachel's words came back like a quiet echo. Chosen. Smarter. Different. My wife looked up, startled. How do you... I asked questions, I said. The kind you didn't expect me to ask. Her breath caught, and that was the moment I saw it. Not just guilt, but fear of exposure. Fear that Daniel's respectable image would crack. Fear of consequences that reached beyond our home. At noon, I called again. This time, Daniel answered. His voice was exactly the same as it had been in lecture. Measured, confident, calm enough to sound reasonable even when he wasn't. Ethan, he said, this is unexpected. I put the phone on speaker and placed it on the table between me and my wife. No, she mouthed, shaking her head. I ignored it. I'm going to keep this simple, I said. Did you buy my wife men's protection? Silence. A long, controlled silence. The kind that isn't confusion, but calculation. Then he said, I think this conversation is inappropriate. That's not an answer, I replied. So I'll ask differently. Have you been sleeping with my wife? My wife covered her mouth with her hand, sobbing silently. Daniel exhaled, almost amused. Ethan, I don't owe you. Yes, you do, I said, and my voice sharpened for the first time. You inserted yourself into my marriage. You don't get to hide behind manners now. Another pause. Then finally, he spoke softer. I care about her. The way he said it, like it was noble, made my stomach turn. I didn't ask if you care, I said. I asked if you slept with her. My wife shook her head frantically, tears spilling now. Daniel's voice lowered. This won't help anyone. And that was the confession. Because innocent people don't talk like that. They deny. They outrage. They hang up. He was managing fallout. I nodded once, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Thank you, I said, and I ended the call. My wife looked at me like she'd just watched her own life collapse. You didn't have to do that, she whispered. I did, I replied, because you were never going to tell me the truth on your own. She reached across the table, trembling. Please, don't leave. I'll fix it. I'll stop. I stood up, slow and deliberate. This is the part you still don't understand, I said. Stopping now doesn't undo the fact that you chose him while you were still married to me." Her face crumpled. I walked to the closet, took out a bag, and started packing. Not everything, just enough. Documents, clothes, the pieces of myself that belonged to me before I became someone's husband. Behind me, she cried and begged and promised. But the climax wasn't her tears. It was the moment I realized I didn't feel pulled back anymore. Because the truth was finally out in the open, and it was uglier than denial, but cleaner than lies. And as I zipped the bag closed, I understood exactly what came next. Not revenge, not a screaming fight. Just a door closing, quietly, firmly, on a version of my life that had already been failed by the people I trusted most. I didn't leave the house immediately. I stood in the bedroom, holding the bag I'd packed, listening to my wife cry in the kitchen like the sound might still reach the version of me she needed. But that version was already gone. The man who believed explanations could fix betrayal had left the moment Daniel's voice hesitated on the phone. I walked past her without stopping. Outside, the air felt sharper, colder, like the world had reset itself without asking permission. I drove until the streets thinned and pulled into a small hotel parking lot, the kind you forget about the moment you leave. That was the point. My phone vibrated all night. At first, her messages were frantic, apologies stacked on top of promises. Then they turned desperate, then quiet. As if she finally realized there was no version of the story where she talked me back into believing I mattered more than her secrecy. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because responding would turn clarity into conversation, and conversation was how she'd kept control. The next few weeks were administrative. Paperwork, accounts, scheduling a separation, like you schedule a repair, methodical, emotion stripped away. She tried to reframe it as a temporary break. I didn't correct her. I just didn't participate. She asked me once during a final conversation that felt more like a formality, "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "But I don't trust you. And I don't build a life on something that's already broken." That answer hurt her more than anger would have. Daniel never contacted me again. He didn't need to. Men like him retreat into reputation and silence. Confident time will smooth the edges. Maybe it will. For him. For me, the healing came quietly. I stopped replaying conversations, stopped wondering what I could have done differently. I realized something important. This wasn't a story about temptation or confusion. It was about preparation. You don't carry protection just in case, unless you've already decided what you're willing to do again. Months later, I found myself folding laundry in a new place, alone, and noticed how calm my hands were. No tension, no waiting for a phone to buzz, no wondering where someone else's loyalty was. That's when it finally hit me. I didn't lose my wife to another man. I lost her the moment she chose secrecy over honesty and planning over commitment, and assumed I would stay because I always had. Leaving wasn't dramatic. It wasn't revenge. It was the simplest, strongest decision I've ever made. Because the deepest betrayal isn't cheating. It's realizing the person beside you already prepared for life without you, while still asking you to believe you mattered. And once you see that clearly, the only real choice left is to walk away.